what I loved as a kid, it wasn't there. It had not been
Reawakened.
resurrected yet.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah,
Well, I like how you bring that out because to a lot of people, what a movie means or the importance of the movie many times has little to do with what's in the movie, but rather, you know, what the movie means in the context of its own franchise or when it comes out or its competition or if a movie if the fandom and we can kind of maybe segue into the whole discussion that we're going to be doing pretty soon here, but if the fandom believes that this movie was created for them or with their sensibilities in mind, they will they will praise the movie despite the content of the movie itself. Like one discussion
yeah,
that we could have actually is the Sonic movie, right? Um, the Sonic movie was ostracized. Well, people were interested in it in the beginning, right? When it was first announced, even the first teaser, right? But then it was when the later teaser came out, and there was that more clear confrontation between the officer and Sonic, and people said his teeth looked weird and whatnot, that they became
yeah.
very so. And then later on they changed it, and then all of a sudden it's the best movie ever. I mean, what movie goes from complete trash to like the best video game movie ever based on the design of one character? You know, clearly that's not an objective stance, but rather it's a response to a larger social thing going on between the quote unquote fandom and creator. So that movie is important because it shows that when you listen to your creator, and I kind of always joked around about this because I said, well, what if they had already planned on switching it? You know, what if they had already planned on changing his design a little bit? Um, could you induce something like that? Could you make something that you think people would be repulsed by or be repelled by, and then change it just to induce the feeling of like some kind of loyalty or solidarity with the fans? you know?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
it's
I've been listened
it.
to. I've been heard. My voice
Right.
matters. I matter.
Mm.
Well, that's so the Sonic debacle is really interesting because one, you had the studio listen to the fans, which is something that does not happen often, and
Which is weird. Which is
Very
weird.
weird.
Snyder fans know that all too well. That it's very rare that the studio actually listens to fans. And then you also have the people that are coming in and saying, well, you guys are all about artistic integrity. You're supposed to defend what the filmmakers wanted. Why aren't
Hmm.
you allowing the filmmaker to create what they wanted?
Hmm.
But Sonic is still such a unique example because of what it means to so many people as people that grew up with that game a part of their lives. So there's a
Right.
nostalgic feel that is very powerful when it comes to the Sonic character.
Right.
You know, like I yeah, it's really interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask because most people, when they say listen to fans, what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean? Like which fans, and also when is it all right to listen to them, and when isn't it? And what will fans accept, and what won't they accept? And why won't they
Yep.
accept it? These are all questions that we should ask. I think in regards to like, let's talk a little bit about the whole. And we've talked about this in the past, but I think it's even more interesting and more pertinent now than ever. The idea that somehow artistic integrity can live in full flourish along with the idea of being listening to your fans. Like in this particular situation, the Snyder Cut movement's primary goal is to restore the film to whatever it is that Zack wanted. So we're not going to
Right.
basically say we don't want him to do this or that because ultimately our sensibilities are so much in line with him, and he is so much a proponent of his own style and his own sensibilities that it works out in this particular case. In most cases
Right.
though, movies are just a 4-quadrant corporate product made to appeal to the most people. So if you're doing that, and that's what you plan on making, and you're not planning on making some auteur film, right? Then it would make more sense to just listen to the people who have the most influence on how many people watch it and just the overall impression that the movie gets. But this is completely different. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Manu, do you want to take this? Because I've got a lot of thoughts on this.
Manu's on Twitter.
Here, I'll give you something to chew on.
I was actually on Tinder, but sure.
I saw that. That finger swiping left.
That's funny, man. That's funny. Yeah, that's funny, man. So this, I've. No one has called me a hypocrite on this, but I do see there is a sort of hypocrisy in my support of Zack Snyder and his vision for the DCEU, and my disdain for the new Star Wars movies, because
I disagree completely.
Yeah, no, bring it on. This is great stuff. This is so good. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so I think The Last Jedi, I think it is one of the worst things to happen to a movie franchise in history. It is one of the most destructive movies ever made in terms of what it has meant to Lucasfilm, what it has meant to the Star Wars fandom, and what the repercussions it caused after the movie came out, from Colin Trevorrow being fired from the next movie, to J.J. Abrams picking it up and doing what he did with The Rise of Skywalker, to the current state of Star Wars now. The Last Jedi has been so destructive. But I think anyone can make the argument that the movie was given to Rian Johnson, and Rian Johnson, as a filmmaker, did what he wanted to do with it, with not much studio interference. And so, from kind of the argument of artistic integrity, I think there is a case to be made that is the movie that Rian Johnson wanted to make. Whether or not that is Groucho, hush. Shh. Sorry, whether or not that was the right decision for the overall franchise, that's to be, discussed. But, I've seen there a sort of hypocrisy within myself when I am in full support of Snyder and allowing Snyder to do what he wants to do, but also being completely disgusted at what Rian Johnson did with The Last Jedi. So
I think the difference there is you liked what Snyder did, but you didn't like what Rian Johnson did.
I hated it, man. It felt completely offensive to me as a fan of Star Wars. Like, I felt offended by that movie. But yeah, no, it is.
I actually find that really interesting, because I really feel like The Last Jedi is essentially BVS in so many ways.
I know there's an argument to be made on that. Yeah,
I like to, but back to how you said that you feel like that's Rian Johnson's movie. Like, for me, the biggest gripe that I have with The Last Jedi is that it's in fact two wholly separate movies. You have one movie that I think is the movie that Rian wanted to make, which is the story of Rey and Luke and what's his name? Crybaby Man.
Oh, Finn?
Oh.
No. The dude that's always crying. Come on. You don't know who I'm talking about.
Ray.
No. Not that crybaby, man. No. The one that doesn't want to be good. Kylo. There you go, Kylo. So I think that
he's just a screaming Mimi. What he
is. Yeah. So I think that those three have actually like a pretty good, interesting arc going on. Like, those three characters. And then there's everything else in the movie that just feels like a studio dump. Like everything with Oscar Isaac, with Finn, with Kelly Marie Tran, everything that happens on the ship. For me, all that stuff seems studio mandated. It seems like it's
Yeah.
like we have all of these minorities and persons of color. What are we gonna do with them? And it just becomes this like whole hogwash of things that makes no sense in order to push the woke agenda, like Pilly likes to call it.
Yeah,
You know,
you didn't have to air quote. I mean,
I mean,
No, it's true. I know. And
it's
the whole
real.
thing with Holdo, the purple hair Holdo,
yes,
and her,
exactly.
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Like
No,
the
I get it.
whole Oscar Isaac must be taken down because he's too much of a man who
Yeah.
wants
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that whole stuff like and he continues to be like talked down to by women constantly during the whole movie.
yeah,
First it's Leia, then
yeah.
it's Hodor, and then Finn is basically a bitch the whole ass
Yeah.
fucking movie like
Yeah.
so I do feel like there's a part of that movie that's Ryan Johnson, but the other part is all Disney, and I think that there's such
Yeah.
a but I don't like honestly I whenever like there was this moment like last year that I watched The Last Jedi like 8 times in the course of a week because I was just
Oh man.
trying to like because this
Oh
movie made no sense to me whatsoever. But when you tell me that it was offensive to you as a Star Wars fan, I get it because Ryan Johnson seemed like he took this glee in building up with your expectations just to like squash
Yeah.
them.
Almost in every scene there was
yeah.
something there.
Like
Yeah.
the first one, The Force Awakens, ends on Rey handing the lightsaber to Luke Skywalker that we haven't seen in
Yeah.
like 30 years. And then when we catch up to that moment, like years later, what does he do? He tosses it over his shoulder, and it's played off
Oh
like a
dude.
joke.
Yeah.
Or
Uh,
It's not even done seriously. Like he doesn't hand it
exactly.
back. He doesn't be
Mhm.
like, "No, I can't accept it," or it's not dramatic. It's just like yeah.
Yeah, or
yeah.
when
Yeah.
they're when the resistance is being attacked, and what's his name even in these movies? Oscar Isaac, I forgot. Poe is like permission to get on the ship and go blow something up. So he starts running towards his ship. The music is coming up, it's rising, and you're thinking you're gonna get like a great action sequence. And what happens? It all gets blown to shit,
Hmm.
I know.
before he even
Just
gets to the
just
ship.
so just so Rose can kiss
Like
him.
the whole movie
Yeah.
continuously just like it just punishes you for being a Star Wars
And
fan.
then Luke, and then you think Luke is actually there to save the day, and no,
He's not
he's just
even
some
there.
ghost.
He's
Yeah.
He's
not
not
even
even
there.
there.
Yeah. And he
Yeah,
died.
yeah,
He dies because he tries.
yeah,
Dying
yeah.
from trying.
Yeah, dude. Props for watching that movie again. I saw it. I saw it once in theaters. I was so shocked that I didn't believe what I saw, and so a week later I saw it again,
Yeah.
and I almost walked out. And I haven't seen it since. I saw it twice in theaters, and I haven't
Yeah.
seen it
I
since.
saw it twice in theaters as well, and then I watched it was on Netflix, so it was just easy to keep playing it because I was just trying to
Yeah,
like because like I was just because I always said like if people gave BVS more of a chance, I feel like they would have been able to see what we were seeing and stuff if you kept looking at it with an open mind. So I felt like I owed that to the Last Jedi,
yeah,
and I really
yeah.
tried, like I really tried, but I just to this day I can't connect the dots. It's like there's I don't know. So I completely understand where you're coming from
There's so
on
Yeah.
the
many
Last Jedi.
reasons why they're not the same. I mean, there's so many reasons. I mean, okay, so let's just talk about just wait. What are we doing?
Nothing. I'm
Um,
just an asshole, dog.
let's just talk about like okay, just within its own franchise, it's incongruent. You know,
Ooh, I can.
um,
Yes. Yeah.
the Ryan Johnson messed up the story from even the last one, the characters, the trajectory. He completely went off the beaten path. And this is the thing, okay? We believe in artistic integrity and things like that, but you the reason why we believe in that is because we believe that a story is told by a single individual. We basically believe in auteurism. But a lot of people don't who profess artistic integrity don't even know what that word means. But a lot of us believe in auteurism, basically, where the director is the author of his own story, right?
Yeah.
And um and there's nothing auteur about the Star Wars story. You're picking up within this trilogy in the middle of it, and that trilogy within the entire Skywalker saga is also just a proponent of a larger story, which George Lucas envisioned, right? So you know you can't. It's not like, and this is one story from beginning to end. Whereas Snyder he enjoys taking mythology, deconstructing it. The Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman have been told over and over, time immemorial. So it's a completely different thing to have a take, which is ultimately going to be just one of many. Whereas you just took
Right.
the definitive Skywalker story, and then you didn't have any kind of level of integrity within the larger story. I mean, maybe within that movie, and I could even make arguments why within the movie there was integrity that was lacking as well. So yeah, I
No,
mean,
going off of your point right there, I just want to say I agree, because that is the main difference. Because like so many DC movies before, and like the comic books, there are different interpretations of these characters that we've gotten from dozens of writers over
sure.
decades of writing. And so even Batman, how many different, people have played Batman? How many different versions of Batman
Mm.
have we had? Whereas there has only ever been one Luke Skywalker and
Yeah,
one version of Luke Skywalker. And the version of Luke Skywalker we got in The Last Jedi was not
yeah,
the
and it's
the
a
version of
theatrical
Luke Skywalker.
first franchise, as
Yeah.
opposed to this is version of Batman and Superman are based off of a comic book, which was at one time oh, it doesn't even matter what it became, but yeah, it's a comic book essentially. um and we've strayed so far from the golden era of these comic book characters that no one would ever make the argument that they should be like they were originally created, as they would for Luke. When they say, "Hey, Luke needs to be this way because this is how he was originally," right? That has a whole different meaning than you saying this is what Superman's supposed to be, because your idea of Superman is based off of all these ideas, these various ideas, comics, cartoons, movies, video games, this nebulous franchise, and you pick and choose what you like about that character, and you create your own version in your head. So that's why I don't correlate those two at all. They can't be done. If Ryan Johnson wants to make an auteur movie, you need to take a story from the very beginning and create it to the end, and then you can say, "Hey, I'm an auteur. Here you go." But you didn't do
Right.
that.
Right. And that, yeah, and so I mean there's the Star Wars fandom is so split. It's so split in the middle, because there are quite a few Star Wars fans that really do enjoy the sequel trilogy. I'm not one of them. And so this idea that Ryan Johnson's going to come back and do another Star Wars movie or even another Star Wars
Mm,
trilogy is
right.
concerning, to
It's
say
a
the
threat, is
least.
what it is.
Right? Yeah, yeah. But had he had his first Star Wars movie not been in the Skywalker saga, had it been, I'm going to make a new Star Wars story with brand new characters that had never been told before, I think he could have had a drastically different result. But
Mhm.
I am not willing to give him another chance after what he did.
Right. Well,
But
hey,
it's about
let's talk.
subversion.
Let's talk about a little bit more about fandom and whatnot. So earlier in one of my own videos that I posted to YouTube, I was talking about the idea and we're all here, we're all together in this same space talking about these things because the connection we have is the Snyder Cut fandom, the Snyder Cut movement. And actually, I didn't really get to actually talk about this quite as much as I'd like to in that video. And we can get to it a little bit later. But I like to argue that the Snyder Cut movement is actually not a fandom, so to speak. And I can, and I'll make that argument a little bit later, and I'll tell you what I would call it.
Actually, can
And
you tell
maybe,
us that part now?
yeah, if you're so impatient.
Yeah,
Well,
I kind of am. Could you please tell us what you would call us?
I would say that we're a community.
Ah, okay.
See, a community can
I
be.
didn't think you were going there.
Oh, you didn't think so?
No, I didn't think that's where you were
Do you think I
going
was gonna
with
say
it.
something like what?
A cult.
Well, no, and the reason why, because a fandom. When I think of a fandom, I think that of a situation where the only thing that joins people together are just um are is just one thing. Like, oh, we all like you know Superman, this Superman movie, so that's why we're all here. Whereas with the Snyder Cut movement, you can say that a lot of us are here because of that, but others of us are here because we just like Snyder, right? So is it a Snyder fandom? Well, no. I mean, some of these DC fans also here. We have people who appreciate the cause of AFSP. We have people who legitimately believe in artistic integrity and they want to see this director's movie. Some people just joined in because they saw this like movement building up and they wanted to be a part of these values, these overarching values and ideas. So they either thought, hey, I can profit off of this, or I actually believe in this and I want to contribute to this thing. I think it can change the industry. It's gotten reported on. It's become this thing where we inhabit this space because we're a community. We live in this area of ideas, and that's why we're all, networking and talking with each other. It's not just a fandom. Fandom, I think, wouldn't do it justice. Sure, there's probably multiple fandoms here that are all kind of intermingling, but we're a community. So that's what I was going to bring that up later, but
I like that. I think that's a very apt descriptor of what it is. I think
right.
that it works much better than other things that.
And people in communities don't always agree with each other because typically with a fandom, the fandom is like, if you don't agree with the fandom, then you're ostracized and you're not a part of the fandom anymore, typically. If you, and actually, you have a incentive to always look for for the goal of the fandom, to always be pushing for the same goal. The thing that we have going on here is far messier, far messier. And it's not just because some of us, you know, don't agree with how we're going about the movement. That's not even the reason why it's messy. Is because a lot of us are here because, of what it means. Some of us are here
So
because there's profits to be made, or there's narratives to be, like, it's important on a larger scale that doesn't have anything to do with a single movie or anything like that.
this is really interesting when you start to think about how to deconstruct what the release the Snyder Cut fandom is, because
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you touched on something that helps to describe how different this is compared to just a fandom, because what what fans have done in the release of Snyder Cut movement is something that has never been done before. It's historic. It truly is historic, and I don't mean to say that. I say that with a lot of thought put into that word, because it is historic. Um, and what it has evolved to become, it is so much more than just a fandom. Because, and I think one of the things that really has separated it is because there was a specific goal in mind, and it was a specific goal that everybody agreed on. And so, however it was going to be achieved, however, whatever means by which people decided, I will do this to help us achieve this
Mhm.
goal, right? Um, Everybody agreed on that goal. Whereas a fandom, there isn't a specific mission. There isn't
Right.
something that you're set out to accomplish. There is a a community of people that are there to enjoy and express their enjoyment for whatever it is that they're enjoying. But yeah, the community of the Snyder Cut people, we were set out on a mission, like a legit. We have a goal that we have to accomplish, and we will do it. So yeah, I mean,
I think
really
I
fascinating.
also always viewed it that way, and I think that that's also why it never really, like, for it seemed like for such a portion of it, a lot of people really mind the fact that some of us don't get along with others, and my take on it is just like it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, we don't all have to like each other. We don't all have to like be friends with each other. But what's important is like when it's time to show up, when it's time to do what is
We do.
necessary,
Yeah.
people will show up and will be there. And there have been some times when there's been some conflicting narratives that have taken place, but I feel that if on November 17th, 2019, everyone was there together
Hmm.
to get us to that 800,000 plus number of tweets. And I think that at the end of the day, that's more important than whether we fight, whether we argue, because even with your friends, you argue. Like,
Right.
it's just part of life.
And fandoms, they have arguments and stuff like
Yeah.
that as well.
So I never
Yeah.
understood why the fact that we didn't all get along, why it was such a big deal. But I do believe that community is the right way of describing this, because there is so much more in this whole thing than just the movie, like Mike
Hmm.
said. Some people want to, make their platforms bigger. Some people want to, push for artistic integrity. Some people don't even like Zack's movies, but they feel like what happened to him was wrong, and they
Hmm.
want to be part in writing that. So I think that there's so many different factions because there's so many different motivations,
Right.
but all of the motivations lead to the same goal. And
Which
I
brings us
think that,
together in a community. Yeah.
so like what Andre said, that's kind of what is historic about this. Like, even if we did have all of these different motivations, we were all fighting for a common goal. And I think that that really tells you a lot about the people within the community, as well as the goal for which we were fighting for overall. It meant that it was something that meant enough to many different factions of people
Hmm.
from all over the world to invest their time, their money, and their voices too. And I really do think that we've really accomplished some wonderful, wonderful things. And it like, can is there more to be done at this point? I don't know.
That's what we're here to
Um,
talk about.
oh, is it?
Hell
Oh,
yeah, there's more to be done. Come on,
oh, that's what we're here to talk about. Oh, my bad. If I had known.
Well, yeah, and actually, I wanted to get into some of the potential road bumps and things like that could come into the future, and what this means not just for our um, community, but other communities that are starting to prop up that share a similar idealisms and whatnot.
The army
I
for
think,
one.
huh?
Lead the army.
Right.
make
You know,
Solo 2 happen.
well, I want to. So here's one thing, and let's get into those things too. But this is one thing I want to talk about is the idea that, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. So they they released, the creators of this content being Zack and people that are, his crew, and even, Warner Media, HBO Max, to a certain extent, Warner Brothers, even though they might not have been completely complicit, you know, um, they're the creators, right? We're the fans, and this to many people represents to many people, and I'm not even sure if this is totally true, but to many people it represents a situation where the creators listened to the fans, handing over the power to the fans, if it will. And what I'm wanting to know is, in a situation where fans get to control the narrative, as we have, right? We've taken control of the narrative. Um, are we going to be in this industry, in this space, in this entertainment, space, in a better position now that fandom has more control over their own narrative? Is that a good thing, or is there any negatives to that? What do you guys think?
Um, I don't think that's what happened. I don't
Okay,
think I don't think we're at a place where all of a sudden, well, we'll see how things go in the months and years to come. But
sure.
I believe that there's something really unique about our situation, and you have to keep that in mind when you're trying to like broaden it to throughout Hollywood.
Hmm.
This entire situation with Zack is a very when I say unique, I don't necessarily mean in the sense that other artists have had their work taken away from them, but it never, the way that it was done, with what happened with his daughter, bringing on Wheaton, and I think that
Fisher
that's
situation.
yeah, and I think that that's really the main difference is that there was such an institutional failure from Warner Brothers' end. There was so much negative attention towards them, so much indulgence, and what's the word, incompetence in the way that they acted, that all of that played into what happened. And them being bought out by AT&T, the launching of HBO Max, understanding that there is a fandom that is big and that is going to spend money on it. I think all of those things played a part in us getting this thing. So I don't necessarily believe that this is something that's going to be replicable, because again, for us to get to the point that we had, so many things had to break right, so many things had to occur for us to get what we wanted. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind when we're trying to talk about how this is going to affect the industry as a whole.
Hmm.
And again, now the question is it going to be successful? And I think that that success, if it's successful on a financial, whatever measure of success that Warner Media needs, I think that the conversation becomes more interesting at that point.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a very nuanced and insightful response, Manu.
You think they call me Manu for no reason?
But it was nuanced because that question, it requires nuance. Because you're right, Manu. There are so many different factors that play a part into what happened with Zack, the fallout with the studio, and everything that happened after that. There's so many moving parts, and in
Like
a way,
if if
it is
Justice
it is
League
kind of
if Justice League was successful, we wouldn't be here, right?
right,
Mm.
If
right.
Shazam, Birds of Prey had been successful, we probably wouldn't be here.
Or say that Zack didn't leave. Say he didn't leave and he just gave in to every studio demand, and then the movie came out, and then that was it.
If
Yeah.
Zach wasn't
Like
someone who was insistent upon his own vision and his own artistic integrity,
right,
then we wouldn't have
right.
anyone to rally around. He drove a lot of this, and
Yeah.
a lot of directors aren't insistent on their own integrity or their own sensibilities.
And we saw that quite a bit over the
Yes,
last few years.
Right,
David Ayer,
right.
even Kathy Yan to an extent, Patty Jenkins, pretty much
You,
all of them.
so you're just gonna drop names now?
Yeah, I am. I am going to
Sorry,
drop.
Well, no,
Andre.
no, but
Sorry, Andre.
in
Carry
this,
on.
no, no, but I mean, this isn't necessarily to call out these specific directors, but there is a sense of integrity and an uncompromising passion that Zach has. Zach only wants to do his movies his way, and which is why, like, when you think about BVS, like, I'm sure he put up a huge fight on what was released in theaters for BBS and then what was released on home video. Because when on earth has a movie ever received a director's cut on the same day the movie comes out? Like,
Mm.
when does that ever happen?
Mm.
Like, so that just speaks to likely the conversations that Zack had behind the studio saying, I do not approve of the movie that you are putting in theaters. That is not my movie. You need to put my movie out, which is why it came out the next day. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the ultimate cut was available. Like, that's never happened, right? Like, and so, whereas I'm not saying other directors or filmmakers don't have integrity, but maybe they don't have the clout or the connections that Zack has as
Mm.
well, or the confidence to be able to say, no, I'm done. And I'm not saying Zack quit, but to walk away. Because to walk away, that's massive.
Yeah.
I
Because
mean, and
Zack
he's done it
did.
before. I mean, back he was supposed to
Yeah.
do SWAT. SWAT. What it was supposed to originally be rated R, with a script written by David Ayer. Then the studio said, "Oh, actually, we want to make it PG-13," and he walked away. And that was supposed to be his first studio film.
Mm.
So it's in his history that if something doesn't feel right to him, if something doesn't feel natural, that he will take the steps necessary to extricate himself from that situation, and that takes a lot of confidence in yourself and in your
And
abilities to do that.
it is such a massive leap of faith because and we've read it in the subsequent articles that have come out that Deborah and Zach had no idea that this was going to happen. They had no idea that fans were going to come together and push, for years for this to happen. And yet, I think it seems that there was a sense of trust that Zach felt that I will not compromise on what I want to do with the movie that I want to make. I'm not. I. I.
The story
What
I
is
want to
that
tell,
quote?
you know? He was
Yeah.
in the middle of telling a story.
Exactly. Yeah. What is the quote from Rorschach and Watchmen that
Uh,
even in the
Never
face.
compromise, even in the face of Armageddon.
Exactly, and I think Zach that genuinely takes something like that to heart, and so that he trusted that it was better for him to not even make the movie than to do what the studio asked, and that takes balls, man.
Yeah.
That really does. Like,
And that's the reason why, like, listen, when I'm calling out, like, name dropping, I'm not saying that these people should be ostracized or should be looked at negatively for not having the same level of integrity. I don't have a problem, and I don't think anyone should have a problem saying that, listen, these directors don't have as much integrity as this director. Because to say that they do is that that subtracts from what Zack is and what he has done. It's fine. Like, listen, it is a business. And that's part of the reason why what Zack is doing is extraordinary. Patty, Yan, Ayer, all these other directors have no obligation to push their own sensibilities to the point where they take a loss, when it comes to financial things, just out of the pure principle of the matter. They have no obligation to do that. Matter of fact, it doesn't sound very prudent to do that. Zach is a madman. you know and that's
yeah,
why we appreciate it. So no, you don't have to be like Zach. You don't have to be so insistent on your own sensibilities. You don't have to have that level of integrity. But Zach does, and they don't, and that's completely
but
okay.
see, and look what the movement though has given. The movement has even given a voice to someone like Kathy Yan.
Hmm.
Like, look what the stuff that she was saying after her movie came out. I mean,
Yeah.
she was already saying
And she
like the
retracted too. She
studio
retracted
meddled.
a lot of that. I followed that pretty
Well,
closely because if she was willing to say, like, listen, I I didn't feel good about it. I the product that I wanted to put out there isn't it. I would have been behind that. Like, I was not all about her movie, but I would have gone full. I mean, a lot of people in the Snyder Cut movement would have had a lot of things to say about it, but I would have legitimately given her as much of my attention as I did Snyder, despite what anyone else would have said or what anyone else would have done. If it were just me, I would have done it because I actually believe in that. Like, if she felt that way, and she was willing to put some, Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs out there for us to pick up and to do it, and she wanted to play the whole game, then yeah, I mean, I would feel morally obligated to do it.
Yeah.
But she didn't.
No, I know.
She didn't.
And
And Ayer retracted. Right. Ayer retracted, and Patty retracted. They all play this, these studio politics, and they don't let us help them.
Well, because when has this ever happened?
Exactly.
Like why would they believe that we can help when it's never happened before?
Right. Yeah. And I think Ayer got more courageous
after the Snyder Cut was released.
Right.
That was announced. Exactly. That's when Ayer was like, it wasn't my movie, guys. I got my movie. It doesn't take a lot to be done. And people were like, where the hell were you 3 years ago?
Right.
You know?
Right. But I mean, Mike, I see your point though, and it's not necessarily to call them out. I mean, they're different personality types. Not everybody is the same.
Yeah.
But Zack is unique, man. He is one of a kind, and people recognize that because you're putting your career on the line. Mm-hmm. If you walk away from Warner Brothers, the biggest studio in the industry, like you might not ever have a job in Hollywood. Like,
I mean,
and so
I had conversations like I was legit worried. I was like, is that it? Are we ever going to see another Zack Snyder movie again? Like, I legit asked that. Then then Netflix came through with Army of the Dead, and that was great to see. But yeah, there was definitely a worry there that might have been it at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So I mean, and you look on other movie projects where notable directors were either fired or left. Like I already mentioned Colin Trevorrow with he was supposed to finish out the sequel trilogy for Star Wars. But he was fired. He was let go just because of creative differences.
Josh Trank was also fired.
Josh Trank. Yep. Think about
the brothers.
Lord and Miller that were supposed to do the solo movie, and so I admire the people that they stick to their guns so much to where they say, look, we have a movie, you hired us to make a movie, we have the movie that we want to make, and you're not letting us make it. So instead of giving in to what the studio wants, they left. And what about the guy that was supposed to do Ant-Man?
Eddie Wright. Edgar Wright.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Edgar Wright. Yep, Edgar Wright. He got the
Patty
writing
Jenkins
credit,
left Marvel initially, because of creative differences.
Who did?
Patty Jenkins.
Patty was supposed to do Thor 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what happened there.
Now she's going back to Disney to do Star Wars.
Is she? I thought she was doing Cleopatra.
Oh.
No, she's doing a Star Wars movie.
Is that
for real? Are we open to having a little Patty Jenkins bash fest?
Hold on.
We are.
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
I don't
have anything to say about Patty Jenkins.
Yeah.
You guys, like, anyone who has seen Wonder Woman 84 does not need me to say anything about Patty Jenkins.
I mean, the point of this podcast isn't to bash certain creators, but it's just to put a finger on things that people are aware of or aren't aware of that aren't being said. You don't have to be mean-spirited or anything like that. You don't have to like come up with the most clever, witty way to destroy, a certain creative, but say it in the most clear and concise way that you can.
Let me get back to your original question though, on just like what this might mean for specifically our Snyder Cut community, and then like moving forward, and what it might mean for others. Like, because this is something that's never happened before ever. It's unprecedented. It's hard to say what is going to happen from here, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people that are going to campaign for #restore the Snyderverse. I'm going to be one of them. I want to see it, and I think most Snyder fans will as well. But how long are we willing to do that?
Right.
You know,
And
like
should we have to? I think that that's a more interesting question. Is should
Yes.
we even have to?
Yes. I think
Like,
that's a great question.
like we have shown that we are here. That if they
yeah,
put out the content, that we are there to support it. Like, what else
yeah,
can we do at this point? Like, I really, really believe that. Like, what other fandom is out there begging the way that we are to give them our money? Like,
yeah,
we went on this whole thing in order so people wouldn't have to pirate the movie. Like,
yeah,
Mm.
that's something that we tried to do. Like,
yeah,
so this fandom is not just here to watch these movies. They want to support them in the right way so that the studio can see that it is financially beneficial to them. But they seem to almost at times not care about the financial windfall that they receive from us. So it
yeah,
begs the question, like, you know, hashtag restore the Snyderverse. Like, why do we have to continue to fight
Right.
for
I would go as far as saying that the
I'm actually
moral
offended that we would have to fight some more. Like, I really am. Like, just the idea of it. Like,
right,
do we need to put a billboard on the Eiffel Tower next?
right,
Like,
right. Well, I think people are in the this movement in a lot of ways is a form of activism. If you want to really just get down to it, it's a form of activism, and a lot of people are are looking for a cause. A lot of people see the legitimacy of it, and they want to support it, and there's a reason to be, and it makes sense, and I'm all for that. But I think a lot of people, I can't really put a finger on. I couldn't give a percentage, but there's a great majority of people here that are looking for a cause, and I don't think you can necessarily assign the same level of, like moral obligation, and the same level of justice incentive toward releasing the Snyder Cut to restoring the Snyderverse. Like for instance, let's say if Zack got to make his movie, right? And then Warner Brothers completely in their own right, completely ethically said, you know what? Your movie did okay. It didn't do what we wanted it to do, and we're no longer going to let you finish the Justice League franchise. We're going to bring in Whedon. You're fired, and we're completely within our business right to do that. All right. There's no ethical scandal going on. Okay. If they were to have done that, like we're always like, oh, if he would have made his movie, we would have gotten the whole thing. It's like, well, no, not necessarily. If Warner Bros. Really didn't want him a part of it, they could have ethically cut ties with him, right? So, I just don't think you can put the same level of like indignant fervor behind the Restore the Snyderverse, even though I want it.
versus release the Snyder Cut. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you made a great point because the, the purpose was to right a wrong,
Yes.
and and Zack making the sequel movies to this movie isn't necessarily part of righting that wrong,
It's not.
because
It
yeah,
is.
yeah,
We need to come. We
yeah.
need to come to
But
grips with that. Yeah.
well, which is why I think Manu makes a great point too. Is why should we have to continue to fight? We've already shown and proven time and time again that
time and
there is
time.
serious demand for Snyder's movies, and why do we need to continue to beg the studio
Right.
Because it's not
that this
about
is what
the
we
Right.
they
because
they know it.
it's
Yeah,
not about the movie.
If they don't
It's not
want
even,
our
and
business,
we're at this point where it's
yeah,
not about the movie,
it
and
isn't.
it's not about money. It's about ego and it's about reputation,
yeah.
and that's
Oh
when
yeah,
it
for
gets
sure.
dicey.
Egos,
Absolutely,
plural.
absolutely.
And that's where it
Yes,
gets
absolutely.
dicey.
I don't believe that companies have egos. I think individuals have egos, and individuals make up companies. I know it's a backwards way of thinking, and they might mean the same thing, but I don't think that they do. I don't. I think that your way of looking at it, because a lot of people are like, oh,
What's
Warner Bros.
your way? My way, or
Or the
just
highway.
No, no, because I agree with you. Like usually when people say the studio is just a way of like protecting the people that are actually making these decisions
Right.
to make it look like it's the entity instead of the individual.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
when that's what they do. But
That's
in
important. That's an important thing to bring out, I
yeah,
think,
and we
because
know and we know better now, don't we?
yes,
Yeah, it's
yes,
why. I mean, it's why through the last couple months, anytime there's been a big Snyder cut, either announcement or trailer or
Moment or anything.
article, Warner Brothers is here's your new Supergirl. You know, here's you know,
We're doing this.
here's this.
got
Here's
Blue
We're
here's
doing
Beetle
here's the Blue Beetle movie.
Black
Because
Superman.
they
yeah, oh,
exactly they
written
are
by
they
Coates.
they are it's a power in
You
their
said Coates because you can't pronounce his first name. Admit
Ta-
it.
it's
You
Ta-Nehisi.
said you said
Well, I didn't want to utter the name. I didn't want to be like that's explicit, but since
uh,
you're confronting me about it,
of course. Sorry, Andre,
yeah
carry on.
I
Yeah.
mean I mean more than just kind of a diversion or a distraction from getting attention off of the Snyder cut. It's a serious power play
Yeah.
to show Snyder and Snyder fans we are still in charge.
Yeah. But the
Like
funny thing
that
is,
that's that,
what I found funny is that every single one of those announcements, none of them got the traction that the Snyder Cup was getting.
no,
yeah,
because it's
Not
all
one of
fluff,
them.
man. It's all fluff. It's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
fluff.
even if you just glimpse at like the number of tweets or whatever, that Supergirl announcement was like at 12,000,
yeah,
14,000. Like it never really got off the ground.
yeah,
Like we
Yeah.
hit 12,000 tweets on
yeah.
in our sleep. Like it's
I
nothing.
looked up the actress's name who they hired to do that, and she only had like one TV credit
Yeah.
ever, and it's like
Oh, for Supergirl? Yeah, and
right.
it's a telenovela too. I mean, it's Spanish soap operas. That's
What you
what it
trying to
is.
say, Andre? What you trying to say, Andre?
I'm I'm saying. I mean, she's an obscure actress. She is,
She's
but
a
I
newcomer.
mean, I
Right. Not
it's
that the name is
diversity
bad, but
quotas, man. It's diversity quotas.
yeah. Thank you.
Supergirl is a white blonde girl, man. It's
Right.
a white blonde girl.
Not
Right.
anymore.
Right. Yeah. No, and we can get into I have no qualms talking about that. I know some people get a little squeamish, but I'm not gonna do that. If you want to talk about it, we could talk about it. But beside that, you know, um going forward, it's so we know that there's egos involved, and maybe if we're trying to play with money, if we're trying to play this money game, right? Maybe we need to think about it differently. I think that if ultimately the ego of certain individuals at Warner Brothers is getting in the way of potentially allowing this movie to be as successful as it can be, as well as potentially further sequels and whatnot. Maybe it needs to be about making the narrative so positive and so strong that it would be more embarrassing to not allow this to thrive than it would be to take the blow or take the L for whatever incompetence you had in the past. Maybe that means that.
Yeah.
So it's about creating our own narrative, writing our own story. What was it? Create your past, create your future. It's all right now.
Yeah,
the,
nice, nice,
the
nice, Mike,
problem the
nice.
problem with that is the problem again with that is you can create narratives as much as you'd like, but at the end of the day, facts are facts. The people that were there in 2017 that made those decisions are still there today. So if this movie comes out and is received a quarter of an inch better than the one that was released in 2017, how do you live that down? How do you explain the reasoning behind that? And
Sure.
they've tried to blame it on Kevin. They've tried to blame it on
On
Joss.
Joss. Yeah,
But
Joss is thrown
but
under the
I will
bus.
tell you
Yeah.
how you explain it away.
but people are still like, hey yo, JG, we know you were there. Toby, and even if Hamada wasn't there, like I'm just gonna be real, Hamada hasn't really done anything since his time
Mm.
as head of the DC thing. So I wouldn't trip if he were gone either.
And Hamada we trust, though, right?
No, that's y'all.
Dude, Hamada doesn't.
I knew
That's
that was
Hamada,
y'all.
bullcrap from
Hamada
day
That's
feels.
one.
y'all. Cause
He
that's
feels like
y'all. I
a
remember
puppet,
that. I
man.
People
remember
jumped on that
that
bandwagon so
Jeez.
quick.
it was
It's
a
like,
week. It
Oh,
was a
yeah,
week. It was that
producers
one
can't
week.
physically. You can't make any meaningful change that soon. You were already putting him on
I
on,
mean,
on your dollar bill
it's
before he could
because
even.
I'm
it
telling you,
was because
Hamada
he
has
said
no idea what he's doing.
it's because he
He
said
is a puppet.
Ava DuVernay is gonna do New Gods.
And that
Oh
was
Steven
God.
terrible. I knew
Spielberg.
that was terrible from day one.
Steven Spielberg is gonna do
Oh,
that
A
World War
Black
Two.
Hawk or
But and whatever happened to those projects? Like where is New Gods? You like where are those projects? Like
maybe
you
it's a
know.
good thing we didn't get New Gods though from Duvernay.
it is a good thing. It is a
Wow,
good thing.
wow.
Zach is gonna put that to
You
shame.
guys have no
Oh
faith in Ava DuVernay?
The last movie she
no.
did was a complete disaster.
Are you
She's done
talking
a
about?
Oh,
Are you talking about a wrinkle in Timescape?
that was a terrible movie. Oh
Look,
my gosh.
look. I would not be remiss to call a bad movie, but to
well,
call a
if
wrinkle
Martin
in
Luther
time,
if Martin
to
Luther King Jr. is going to show up in New Gods, then maybe it'll be decent. But he's not.
look
Okay,
if
I'm just
we
saying.
if we are gonna call a wrinkle in time a bad movie, I think we have to redefine what bad is because that would be a huge
Just
insult to other bad movies. Um, to lump him in with the Wrinkle in Time. That's a it's probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah. I
That
mean,
okay,
one
okay,
and
and
okay. I
also
wasn't
it's
sure.
not
I
even
wasn't sure where you were going with that, but
uh,
yes, yes, I
that
agree.
one
right.
and
I
that
agree.
one and Wonder
That was
Woman
a disgrace to
84.
the book. A
Wonder Woman.
disgrace to the book.
It was a disgrace to me. Like I spent money to watch that. It was a disgrace to me.
It's my wallet.
Fuck the book.
Okay, but hey, do you guys agree with this though? Because this is kind of going back to what you were saying, Manu, about whether or not we should even have to fight for the restore the Snyderverse. I feel like we can all agree though that the reality is that if the Snyder Cut is a massive success, if there's a big boon in subscribers, added to HBO Max, and HBO Max sees huge streaming numbers, right? If it is a success, why wouldn't they greenlight
I
a next movie? Why
Great
wouldn't
question.
they?
Okay, well, let me talk about this a little bit in conjunction with what you're saying. I think that there's so much has changed, right? And because so much has changed, um, the way that success is defined has also changed. The era of streaming is upon us, and there is no objective way that we can say what a success is because one, they don't really even know what success is because it's so new, and two, all of the hard and fast black on white numbers are all obfuscated from the general public, so they can choose what they want to define as a success.
Exactly.
So there's so because of all of these different factors. It's funny. I was actually listening to it was the Dark Council with Fatal J and Demogeni and Drunk CPO and those guys, and they're talking about on their YouTube stream about it's Drunk CPO brought up the fact that how will we know that we're doing a good job? Like we just assume that if we make this successful, that they'll say, okay, because you made it successful, we'll give you what you want. But if we're to believe that their ego is in the way, then it's even more so since the fact that it's on streaming. This is a perfect opportunity for them to deny us from,
Yeah,
even more so. So, what do you guys think about
sure.
that? I mean, with the fact that it's on HBO Max, it's going to give it new life, but it also means that they have complete control over what they choose to do with this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. That's kind of the problem. That's the quagmire. So it means that we can't just that's it has to not only be in viewing the movie, we also have to keep it trending all the time
Mhm.
and positively trending. Uh,
Narrative.
exactly. It's about narrative as well. So again, that's some things that we just don't have control over
We have to make
because
them look stupid. Is what we
this
have
is
to
the
do.
thing. This movie will be watched
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah.
we'll watch it because we love this shit, and then other people will watch it
because they hate it.
because they hate it,
Snyder haters will be watching
and
it
then
too.
other
They
people are just
all
gonna,
will be watching
and
it.
then some people will watch it just out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Some people
Yeah.
will watch it just to see how different it is from the rest. And like you said, how do they measure success? For example, I read somewhere that Netflix counts a view if you watch something for more than like a few minutes, right? Like you don't even have to watch the whole thing for it to be
Mm.
considered a view. So like that for like is that there's going to be the same thing for HBO Max? Like
Mm.
if somebody just turns it on to see what it's like for like 10, 15 minutes and then cuts off, will that count as a view?
Mm.
Again, there's just so much that we just don't really know.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, HBO Max was quick to kind of release their numbers for Wonder Woman 1984. You know, they were pretty quick to say, "Hey, this was pretty successful." You know,
Right, because
so
it sounded like that was all damage control, is what it sounded like. Because there
perhaps, yeah,
Because they had
yeah,
gotten bashed so badly after their decision
yeah,
to release all the movies on HBO Max that it could have been to show, hey, look, this is working.
right, right.
And I
it's a
do
great point.
believe,
It's a
and I
great
do
point.
believe that they did double subscriptions during that month. But I
But it
don't.
didn't
But
have to be because of
Wonder Woman
yeah,
84 because they did break deals with Roku, which helped a lot. And they have been doing a really good
Right.
job of educating the public that if you had HBO, you also
day and
have
date
HBO
release.
Max.
I
So
They
I
know,
think,
dude.
started
The
talking about the
rollout
whole
for
day and
HBO
date
Max
release
was
thing. Yeah.
so bad,
pardon
so
me, what'd you
bad.
say, Andre?
Oh, just the rollout for
Yeah,
HBO
the
Max
rollout for
was
HBO
Yeah.
done
Max was
so poorly,
exactly.
so poorly.
We
There's
still
a
don't have
bunch of
4K content.
they
I
still don't
know.
have it
Yeah,
on most platforms. Most smart TVs still don't have it.
Mm.
It's still not
yeah,
international because again they weren't
I
ready.
know. Just
So
U.S. only. Yeah,
exactly. So there's still a lot of things going against it
Yeah.
that they still have to expand. And it's gonna take time for that platform to grow. And stuff like the Snyder Cut can help it grow. Now I'll add, like for me, my biggest worry about JL2 is if you make JL2, how does it work? Like, is it another HBO exclusive, HBO Max exclusive, or are you doing it to release it in theaters? And if it's going to be released in theaters, what does that mean for the entirety of the DC universe as well?
right.
And and for me, I need to think about it from this perspective. Streaming is great. I love streaming, but streaming will never give you that instant return that the theater experience gets you, right?
And
Yeah,
also the
And
the
hold
the
on,
line. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also you have to think about the cast that Zack has put together: Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, Jason Momoa are no longer cheap performers, right? Then you add on top Jared Leto. You have
Ray Fisher gonna have to come do that movie for free.
you have Amber Heard. You have who plays Deathstroke again? Manganello, and
Yeah,
so on and so forth.
Jeremy Irons,
Jeremy Irons is. Are we
Ben
gonna get?
Affleck.
Is Will Smith gonna come back as Deadshot at some point? Like, all of these actors cost money.
So to be a TV movie,
Exactly.
yeah,
Like the Snyder Cut, it
it's
was
so
already
expensive.
shot.
yeah.
That's a different situation. But if you're gonna make JL2, that's a
Right.
$250 million
The
movie.
perception of that movie. See, there's a prestige that comes with cinema and comes with theaters. Also, the cultural impact with of a
I'm just
movie.
looking at it from a money perspective. All that stuff you're saying is true, but just from a money
Sure.
perspective, streaming is the money is just not going to like
Yeah,
it's just not
Right.
going to balance
Well,
itself out.
what you do is, and this has been the case with pretty much all streaming content, is that even in shows like The Mandalorian that have had some of the bigger budgets of any TV shows, it's
They
split
said
up.
they said Scarlet Witch and Vision was like 25 mil per episode.
Right, which is quite a bit per episode, but it's still, I mean, it's still a TV show, and a lot of that content is split up over the course of a much bigger production, or a much not much a bigger production, but that
During the
money
time.
is a lot more diluted.
Okay.
Time and what it goes toward. I mean, so add up all the costs per episode, right? And then look at the costumes versus the costume versus a movie that costs the same. It's different because that money's not all going toward the same thing, you know? Um, it, for some reason, no matter how much money you spend on a TV show, you can't get it to look like a movie for some reason, you know?
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
um,
sure,
I
for sure.
think also you're not trying to make it look like a movie because it's not a
right.
movie.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
that's the thing is that, there's been a lot of talks about what defines, Martin Scorsese obviously talks about what is cinema, he's had his musings about that. He wrote an op-ed. He wrote two op-eds actually. Well, one was more about, about what we're talking about now. And I agree with you, Manu, is that that's going to really come into play. Are they going to make an HBO Max Justice League 2? And will it meet our expectations? If they could pull it off, would it meet our expectations? I don't personally think that it would. It's funny because a lot of us were talking about them splitting up this movie into parts, right? And there was a huge question, a huge kind of divide on our opinions on, should they? Is that what Zack wanted? I knew that Zack would not want that. I know that Zack didn't want to do that. I know that he intended for this to be a movie presented in a movie format. And a matter of fact, I know this because he went as far as releasing the movie 403. Even though 403 isn't ideal for TVs, it's not optimal for TVs, he still did it so that
right.
way when the movie is released, if it ever gets the opportunity to go to film, it will then be optimal for that instead of cutting it down.
Yeah, right.
So, I knew that where his heart was the whole time. I knew, like, yeah, if there was any possibility for him releasing this movie as a film, he would. And that is another reason which makes me believe that if there were any reason for Justice League 2 to happen and for Zack to also agree with it and to go along with it, I think that if he would have to completely either one, rethink the entire format of it, from the ground up to fit this new paradigm, or he would have to get it to be a legitimate, fully theatrical film, so that way it would match with what he envisioned.
Yeah,
It's complicated. Like that's
Yeah,
the thing.
to say the least.
Whatever happens next is gonna be a headache.
yeah,
Like it just is, and honestly, to some degree, I can understand Hamada's desire to just hit the reset button with Flashpoint because the logistics of this thing going forward are going to be mind-numbingly stupid.
mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not saying that like there's no hope, because I do think that there is a level of there's a high chance that you know because like I don't really understand the whole point of giving Zach $70 million not only to finish the movie but to
Or
Add
do
just a
a
to it.
one and done. Yeah,
and to do
for a one and
addition
done.
and to do additional photography in which you shoot a new ending
That's
which
still a
is a
cliffhanger.
cliffhanger
Right.
without thoughts of continuing this going
Right.
forward. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that these discussions have been had, that they are being had. But again, for there to be for the for the Snyderverse to be restored, something's gonna have to give.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
There will be compromise in way. Now, where those compromises take place is the question, and I think that a lot of people that are asking for this whole restore the Snyderverse thing, while they understand they want another Justice League 2 because we're all to a certain extent consumers. Some of us a little bit more prudent than others, but they don't understand what that could actually mean. Like once the Justice League 2 comes here or the idea of it is in the works, um, will it be what you expected? Like, are you still going to feel the same way about it when you're asking for it as when you see it? You
I think
know,
so.
I mean, I think ultimately the rock, the pillar, the anchor, right, for all of this is Snyder. Like that's the thing, is because if Snyder's involved, then usually that allays pretty much all of our concerns. But that's the
Yeah.
thing, is that I honestly, at the same time, that is the thing that I think is actually the most concern for it not to come out is Snyder himself. Because we know that Snyder won't do something if he doesn't feel that this meets his sensibilities to a high standard. Okay,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
above all else, above all the people, all the roadblocks we have, and the egos and the logistics, the finance, the narrative, and everything. After all that is cleared, Snyder still has to feel good about it deep down, you know, and there's
Yeah.
limitations, he has to be able to. He's gonna have to make a big ask, and then they're going to have to come up with something that he feels good with, and that's the thing I think is going to be the greatest hurdle of all the hurdles that we have, because we can show up, we can spend the money, we can create our narrative. We have a few documentaries coming out. There's someone that we know who's making a documentary series. We're going to do an amazing job marketing this movie, and we're going to make Snyder look like we're going to make him look amazing, but he has to still want to do this thing. So
Well, I mean, the really interesting thing that you see continue in every interview or article that has come out in the last few months is that Snyder specifically says
Specifically,
that
every time, without
that
fail.
that there likely won't be a movie. There's probably not going to be a movie. It's probably never going to happen. Like in the Total
Mhm.
Film article, in the Vanity Fair article, in the IGN Fan Fest interview, like without fail, he specifically says it's probably not going to happen.
Right. Which is a call to
And
action, because complacency is the last thing that we need and the last
yes,
thing that we ever respond to. Yeah.
right, right. No, I without a doubt, Snyder is choosing his words very carefully.
Yeah.
He is saying that with purpose. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll add. I just want to add one thing. I think that if we're doing restore the Snyderverse, it has to be at a different level. Like the stuff that we did for release the Snyder cut just won't. It won't cut it.
Hmm.
Like, and that's kind of what I think about. It's like, what does that fight look like? What
Hmm.
does the battlefield look like to restore? And that's why it's important to talk about all of these logistics. Like,
Right.
I remember during the release the Snyder Cut, we kept arguing a lot about how far along the movie was finished. That was like a constant
Hmm.
piece of debate. Some people said it was going to take tens of millions, others said 40 million, and so on and
Or
so
that he
forth.
didn't even film everything he wanted to film.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Hmm.
So
There was no Snyder cut,
yeah, exactly. So there was
yeah,
there was like so
Yeah.
again that stuff mattered because depending on how much the studio would invest or likelihood of success, it kind of
Sure. It
affects
would
the way
change
you.
how we would have to approach things.
Exactly. So that's why it's important to talk about the logistics of restoring the Snyderverse, and I think that that's a bigger hurdle than the Snyder Cut,
You
because the
you
Snyder
want to
Cut
know
already existed in some form, right?
you you
yeah.
Now,
want to know a
going
big thing?
forward, you probably have to rework contracts. You have to,
Mm.
and there's, especially after this pandemic where so many businesses are suffering and hit hard. All of these things are things that we are going to have to consider. So, how do you approach this new fight? And it's going to have to look incredibly different than what we've done so far.
There's something that no one wants to hear, no one wants to do, no one wants to recognize, no one wants to acknowledge, that I think is a big part of this. Is that in order to restore the Snyderverse, you have to realize that this is not an inclusive idea. This is a very
Exactly.
this is a very exclusive idea, okay? And what that entails is that you can not only support you should not only support Snyder, but you should actively make a delineation, a distinction between I want to see Snyder, and I do not want to see this over here. You have to tell Warner Brothers that no, I don't. I don't want to see both. Plus, I really want to see we need to
I don't care for
restore.
Blue Beetle.
We're
I don't
making
care for J.J. Abrams'
yeah.
Superman.
That's
Like,
absolutely
don't
true.
care
And
for
when they come out,
Shazam number
you
2.
have to be
Do
united on
not
that
care.
front. Like there's
Yeah.
not, oh, we want everything multiverse. This multiverse crap is going to be the death of the Snyderverse. You know, you can
Oh, it's yeah.
right, but
For
Because
people,
sure.
even
that's
though the
something that
comic
we're
book
not going to
fans,
ever
because comic book fans understand it, but the general public will never
right.
really fully. It's just too much. It's too much fucking
Right.
legwork, man. It
Also,
just
this is the
is.
thing too. It doesn't actually. There is no multiverse. The multiverse is an excuse for why things ended up the way they are. That's
It
all.
is it is
Yeah.
it is a cop out for poor decision making.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all that
Yep.
is.
I
You
mean,
can't
hey,
Yep.
hey. There's been a whole lot of poor decision
because
making here too.
even a even a multiverse, right? Even a multiverse requires a high
Extend-
level understanding and planning of your films that are coming out, and how they tie together, where they're separate, why they're separate, what who what the demographic for certain movies are, the connection for them, and how it adds to your overall brand perception. They see the thing is, while your movies can so-called be multiversal, your franchise needs to still appeal to the DC, the DC demographic, the people who watch these movies. You still have to have some kind of angle. You still have to have an aim, and a lot of people they hear multiverse and oh that's logical because comic books, but they don't really think about the fact that, you still have to. There's still an understanding of what's going on behind all of it. Like you might see different universes, but they are tied together in some kind of way. And yeah, so like I said, I can't stress that enough. We have to have the metal to be able to say we want Snyder and we do not want the rest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that is a probably even a bigger ask
That's what I.
than
Yeah.
Snyder saying, "Yeah, I'm willing to come back for Justice League 2." Like, will the people that inhabit this community be willing to undergo a restoration? Will they be able to reject the things that aren't going to contribute to this ideal, which is the Snyderverse? And I don't believe that they can.
Right.
I believe too much of us are just consumerists to
DC brand fans. Yeah,
yeah,
DC
yeah,
brand fans.
yeah.
We're gonna go see Matt Reeves
Say
the
nicely.
Batman.
Yeah,
People gonna go see the
sure.
Suicide Squad, and then all those other
Right.
HBO Max spin-offs like
Peacemaker from
what was
James Gunn, who
Peacemaker. I mean,
they were railing against James Gunn when all that stuff went down. When he first came on, it was DC fandom against James Gunn. Let a little time pass, let the narrative,
yeah,
let Warner Brothers and now he already has a movie coming out and a spinoff before he even brought anything. And people are fine for
yeah.
both. They're ready for both, you know. So it's
These movies are gonna flop. They're gonna flop.
well,
Look at
you
no,
hope so.
I'm
They
telling
need
you,
to.
I'm telling you. Look at Shazam 2 was not an anomaly. That wasn't an exception. Shazam 2 was it was it was a revelation of what was to come. Look at Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey did worse at the box office than
They
Shazam.
changed. They
Than
changed the name
Shazam.
after opening weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, these movies are not going to do well. Shazam 2 is not going to do well. Suicide Squad's not going to do well. Like like people are going to go see these movies, but they're not going to do well. They're just not. And I wish Warner Brothers understood this because they're going to continue to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in movies that people don't really care for.
Well, here's something you're
They
not
don't. They don't spend
considering.
$100 million on those
Like
movies.
400 million dollars is maybe the top benchmark for
Right.
any of these movies, but they're not going to hit it.
Well,
Shazam
here's
didn't
something
hit
you're
it.
not considering. A lot of these movies that didn't do well, they weren't marketed very well either.
Yeah.
Shazam did break even, and it probably barely made any money. Birds of Prey lost money, but Birds of Prey had terrible marketing, and the narrative around that movie and around Kathy and around you know um, around the movie was really unsavory. Um,
I mean, Margot Robbie and Harley Quinn is one of outside of Batman and Superman. She's probably the biggest draw in DC movies right now. Like,
Damn, over
they,
Gal, over Jason.
yeah,
well, oh, I'd say over Jason. Maybe not over Gal.
Jason's movie's the only one that made a bill.
I know it did. I know, but that was also, I think, a perfect storm.
It
That
yeah,
that
was. It really
yeah,
was.
yeah.
its opening weekend was awful. It was awful. But like like Avatar, it had legs, man, and it
Hmm.
just kept going weeks after, and people are
Right.
still seeing it. And all of a sudden, boom, a billion, you know. But no, I don't know, man.
Also,
I just
it had a lot of support from Snyder fans and people who shared those sensibilities too, especially because of the way that Momoa, his presence within he was able to kind of bridge the gaps in that way.
Yeah, because
Um,
he welcomed the Snyder thing while everybody at that point kind of kept pushing Snyder
right.
further and further away. He was the only one that kept saying, I love Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder's the best.
Hmm.
Fuck yeah, I want to see the Snyder cut. Like
Yeah.
all that stuff. It
yeah.
Snyder cut fandom who who wanted to I guess in a way thank him for his support.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're very sentimental like that. We're very you tell us something nice, or oh, this is going to be connected to Snyderverse or something like that, and people, their ears perk up and they start to just, their minds get blurry and they stop thinking clearly. but but yeah, but yeah, I was hoping to talk a little bit about kind of our fandom in general. We kind of got onto a lot of that stuff. We kind of fell down the classic Snyder rabbit hole, as we always do, but I expected it. I accounted for all that. But I guess
Oh,
the
this was fun.
Sure. I had a lot of fun as well. I guess the question I would pose to you guys before maybe kind of wrap things up a little bit is, did you guys have anything else that you wanted to talk about or wanted to bring to light in regards to, even if it's not like directly tangential to what we've been talking about, in regards to the future of this movie, specifically the movies that may follow or we hope to follow, or the rest of the franchise or industry?
Man, it really sprung that one on us, huh?
Right.
uh,
Well, right now everything's
No,
good in the world. It seems, we're very content, so we don't have a lot to.
no, I think uh, maybe just it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild that we're just less than 2 weeks away from the Snyder Cut right now. It's surreal. It really is. I think that, and especially for you guys who have been in this journey longer than me and then a lot of other people, like it, it's it's just crazy that after all these years that it's actually happening, you
Mm,
know. And after so many people just saying it was never going to happen. Like, remember when that was it the rap article, the Deadline article that came out where Umberto Gonzalez was like, it's a pipe dream, you
oh
know.
yeah,
And
classic.
that Snyder fans will never let him down for that.
No,
Like, never, never. And maybe it was a pipe dream. Maybe that's exactly what Warner Brothers
well,
execs
we make
told
pipe dreams
Umberto.
come true.
Like, but they completely underestimated the Snyder Cut community. They did. They underestimated our will, they underestimated our passion, and they underestimated how bad we wanted this to happen. And it's crazy, man. It's crazy that it's happening. It's crazy.
I agree with everything Andre said. I when we started this thing, I never had a doubt that we would win. I just never thought it would be this soon. I didn't think that
Yeah.
in like less than 3 years we would have been here waiting. Yeah, shit, it's not even 2 weeks, Andre.
11
It's
days.
it's 11 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
actually, as of right now,
it's 10 days.
well,
At
yeah,
least
you're
for
East
me.
Coast, so
At least
yeah.
for me. Like the Flash. Anyways.
Hey, you know.
Oh, nice. So yeah, Mike is right. I am content, but we should be content. We've been through a lot. Um, and I think that we have to remember that to be happy, to enjoy this movie, and kind of put the politics and all the bullshit aside for at least a couple of weeks, and just enjoy the movie.
Mhm.
And I hope that
Oh,
after the movie comes out, that it's like with BVS when we just like broke it down for like ever and a day.
Mhm.
And I really hope to see a lot of that. And it's been kind of neat with the little teasers that we've seen, to see people kind of already doing that.
Oh yeah.
My favorite one was the in the Superman teaser. There's a shot of him kicking Steppenwolf, and somebody compared it to when Zod kicked him in Man of Steel, and I was like,
or when Leonidas kicked the dude in
yeah,
300. Boom.
300. So like it's always cool to see those like visual parallels come up. And I just really hope I can't wait to see the fandom do what it does best,
Mhm.
and it's just to like look into Zach's work and to like just like pull out all of the details that he loves to put in there for us. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And honestly, if there is to be a battle for restoring the Snyderverse, I'm really excited to see how the fandom or the movement or the community or the cult uh, kind of adapts to that battle, because there's so many great and creative people within the movement. People are gonna have new ideas because that's what we're gonna need in
Mhm.
order to push this thing, because it's gonna be harder. It's gonna be much harder. Um, so I'm really interested to see what that would look like. But
Yeah.
hopefully, I just hope that HBO Max sees what they have on their hands, and that they follow through without us having to, I don't know, get together and buy stock in AT&T. Yeah.
Hey, you've been thinking about this.
Who, me?
You've been thinking about this. Like, what do we have to do? You
I'm
know,
just throwing that out
we should
there.
make a Discord or something like that. Or Reddit.
I'm just saying that maybe if the movement as a trust would control a certain amount of stock in this company, that maybe we would have a bigger say in proceedings.
You heard it here first, guys,
That
on the Millennial Mike podcast.
that maybe just activism is just the start. That to be able to make an actual difference, you can't just sit outside the game and outside the room.
Right,
You actually have to be a part of it.
right.
Maybe that's the next step in this journey. Who knows? Um,
I like that. I liked your thinking.
like I said, it's gonna be harder, so we have to
Right,
think differently going forward. But
right.
until then, yo, let's just enjoy the fucking movie, man. Who we getting tomorrow? Are we getting Wonder Woman or Cyborg?
So, that's a great. That's honestly a really good
I
question.
I think Cyborg is last. I
Cyborg
think
is
he's
last.
last.
Right. Well, because the whole
Yeah.
heart of the film thing, it would make sense to end
Yeah.
on him.
Yeah,
At the same time,
I think Cyborg is tomorrow.
yeah, I think so.
All
And the
right.
reason
All
why
right.
I
Let's
think
see.
Zach
Let's
is
see.
holding Wonder Woman to
And
be for
Aquaman.
last.
I think he's holding back a lot on Aquaman stuff as
Yeah.
well, because every shot that we've seen of Aquaman has none of it has
We've
really
already
been
seen.
you.
Right.
None of it has been
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So I think that Aquaman is gonna do some shit.
Mm.
Mike, what were you going to say about Wonder
Well,
Woman?
I
Why do you
think
think she's going to go last?
because I think that while there are parts of Cyborg's story that we have yet to see, I think that we are also not going to see it in the marketing. I think we'll see some of it in the marketing, but I think that he was probably going to hold back most of that because that's probably the I just have a feeling about it, and I think that he's going to save Wonder Woman stuff for last because I think that of all of what we've seen, I think the most radical things are going to be from Wonder Woman to Themyscirians. Like, for instance, in the trailers,
I would say Flash. Flash is gonna be the most different from the original cut.
Well, what I mean by radical is like
Different.
things. Well, yeah, I mean
Where's that
that's one
meaning,
way
dog?
that's one way to put it, and I agree. I think it's gonna be because he got jacked up the most. I think in the move. Well,
Him and Cyborg
right,
and Batman
but I think especially with
and Superman.
the state of especially with the state of Wonder Woman right
Fondue,
now
man.
in pop culture. Yeah, this guy's a troll, man. Um, especially with the state of Wonder Woman right now in pop culture, I think that Wonder Woman's gonna make the biggest impression. I think. So I think he's saving him for last because of that.
I think, yeah, you
Now,
know,
I'm not even sure
I
Zack
think
has
pe-
direct
people-
control over when it gets released necessarily. I think that from just a marketing standpoint, whoever is controlling the marketing, I think it makes most sense to put Wonder Woman last because
I think it's him, bro, because he's the one it's coming directly from his account first and foremost.
oh, okay. That's true.
Yeah. So I think it's all him. He's steering the ship. Like it's basically like, yo, do your thing at this point.
They're not even posting it on the YouTube page.
Zach's gonna remind the world why we fell in love with Wonder Woman in 2017.
Yes.
He's
Right.
gonna remind the world what Wonder Woman was meant to be.
Well, not Wonder Woman 84. Wonder Woman 84 didn't do that for you, Andre? Huh?
Not that Wrinkle in Time Wonder Woman 84.
But she flew, dog. She flew.
Oh man, I'm so happy that I did not watch that movie. I hope that my
I hate that you didn't watch that movie. You would love it.
You didn't see it? You didn't see it?
Nope. See,
Oh,
I have a strict
no.
I have a very strict and radical approach.
I'm with Andre. You gotta watch Wonder Woman 84, bro. I think you would like it.
You need to understand what I mean, maybe you are due, but the world was exposed to what DC would look like if Jeff Johns and Patty Jenkins were in charge.
The problem is that people didn't believe it until they saw it, and it's like I was seeing all these things. Why is it that what is with this whole idea that if you don't see a movie that you can't predict what you're gonna get? Like what's with that false idea?
I mean, because sometimes it does happen that the marketing campaign does not equal the movie, the final product. It happens often, honestly.
I think most fans were fooled. I mean, when we saw the first trailer,
I believe
a lot of fans.
Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins coming back. Like,
I think that they wanted.
A lot of fans were like this.
Yeah,
a lot of fans were like this.
Yeah, they wanted.
Well, yeah, because it's Gal's the same.
Yeah,
Patty Jenkins, she directed the first one, so obviously it's got to be as good, right?
Yeah.
Well, they replaced Zack Snyder with Jeff Johns, and
that was
a significant difference in the movie.
Well, we can talk more about that maybe in another podcast. I mean, I
watched Wonder Woman 84.
Yes,
we
sir.
can have a bash cast,
Look, man.
If we do that again, we'll have to talk about why Wonder Woman 84 is actually the worst movie in the DCEU, even worse than Justice League.
Worse than Shazam? Worse than Birds of Prey?
Oh, by far.
I agree.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I think it's by far the worst movie of this DC generation. Like coming from Man of Steel in 2013 to now in 2021.
I mean, we're talking like
yeah.
I think Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern might even be a better movie than Wonder Woman 1984.
I have to agree with that assessment.
I enjoyed that movie. There was a lot of exciting parts in there. The CG was actually pretty strong for the time. I enjoyed that movie.
I enjoyed it better the second time I watched it a couple of years ago, but it's still not like top tier DC. It's like middle, maybe lower tier, and then there's like 50 feet of crap, and then there's Wonder Woman 84. I really should not talk about Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah. Well, we'll
go on for another hour.
Let's make it a point to get back to that though, because
that expensive.
All right. Well, hey, before we wrap things up, where can we go ahead and find you guys? Andre, where can we get in contact with you at?
Yeah, well, just check me out on Twitter, man. I'm there. AC_Hutchins. So my first two initials, AC_Hutchins. That's me.
All right. And Manu, where can we find you at? Or
At Man
should we?
United, at Man United 0710. I don't tweet as much as I once did, but you can find me there.
You can find me on Vero at Millennial Mike. You can find me here on YouTube. Post in the comments. I'll respond to you. A matter of fact, I would really like to build this up a little bit so that way I can have more of a nuanced and meaningful connection with you guys. I would like that. Love to have you guys, maybe on the videos one of these days. I'm open to talk with different people about these subjects, and I think it's even more important now that we're really talking about these subjects as opposed to just firing, loading our opinions into guns and firing them at each other.
You're gonna have to watch Wonder Woman 84 for that to happen.
Yeah, I'm not even in the face of Armageddon.
You don't even want to know how. You don't even want to know where the invisible jet came from.
No.
Really? You don't want to know where she got the golden armor from, bro?
I have a picture of that on my phone with the Disney
gosh.
Channel logo at the bottom corner of it.
You don't want to know where she got it, bro?
No.
Like, yeah, you
No.
don't want to know how Kristen Wiig became Cheetah?
No.
No? You don't want to know how Steve Trevor came back?
Here's a hint. We don't even know how she became a cheetah.
Right.
He's not lying.
I've heard enough people speak about the movie to feel
Mike,
comfortable.
you need to make up your own mind. Don't let us guide you.
Actually,
you might watch
Mike,
it and think that it's the best thing since Christopher Nolan did Interstellar.
You're not missing anything. You're not missing anything. I'll tell you that. Like you are not missing.
Look, Mike, a lot of people would tell you that Green Lantern 2011 is not a good movie, but you enjoy that. You might enjoy Wonder Woman 84.
I've also never watched it again.
I mean, but you don't watch anything twice, though.
It would just.
That's a strong point.
It would depress you that Hans Zimmer actually scored that movie. It would literally depress you.
Hans Zimmer's standards aren't as high as we would like to believe. I'll just put it that way. He's good, but he needs to be. Anyway, on that note, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and wrap things up here. We really appreciate you guys coming on today. Great to have a reunion of sorts, and also to have Andre on for the first time. We hope that you guys come back next time. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, hit all the buttons. Hey, even from what I hear, engagements are good regardless if they're up or if they're down. So hit one of those thumb buttons. I don't care, and keep coming back and watching the videos. Help that algorithm, because we all know the algorithm is God, and that we'll all be slaves to the algorithm one day. So anyway, this has been the Millennial Mike podcast. Thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you in the next one. Out.